Well, hey there, guys. How you doing? Hopefully, your guys' evening is going well. The conference finals, of course, we are 2 games into both series, and of course, the Florida Panthers are up 2 games to nothing in theirs, and the Edmonton Oilers emphatically came back and tied the series with the Dallas Stars, and it kind of makes one wonder. Definitely makes me kind of wonder. I won't go into this very very much considering the topic of the video here that I have on the board behind me. But boy, if Edmonton would have played game one in that third period like they played tonight, the Oilers would be up 2 games to nothing going back home. But that series is tied going back to Edmonton. We'll see what happens as now the Eastern Conference Final shifts to Sunrise, Florida, and the Western Conference Finals shifts to Edmonton, Alberta. So the video behind the topic behind me. Now, this is a topic every year. Every single year, basically, since 2013, this has been the main topic of winning the President's Trophy. Is it a curse or not? Because not since these guys in 2013 has a team won the President's Trophy and won the Stanley Cup the same year. And I wanted to go through these. Now, the President's Trophy came to be in 1986. That is when the President's Trophy began to be given to the team that finished in the NHL with the best record in the regular season. Now, oddly enough, if you take a look at these, you only have 8 times. Only 8 times has a team won the President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup. 7 teams, 8 times. And I thought, let's take a look at it. So, 1987, the Edmonton Oilers, they win the President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup in the same year. They finished with a record of 50, 24, and 6. 106 points. Now, this is an 80-game season. So they finished with 106 points. They win the Stanley Cup and the President's Trophy. This is the heart of their dynasty. Then it doesn't happen again until 1989 when the Calgary Flames do it. And the Flames had a record of 54, 17, and 9. 117 points. Again, an 80-game season. Then it doesn't happen again until 1994. So there's a 5-year drought where a team doesn't win the Stanley Cup after winning the President's Trophy. 1994, the New York Rangers, they win the President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup with a record of 52, 24, and 8. Now, this is an 84-game season. They only had an 84-game season, I believe, 2 years. I think only 2 years. They finished with 112 points. They won the Stanley Cup. They ended that 1940 drought. Then you have another gap of 95, 96, 97, another gap of 5 years where a team wins the President's Trophy but doesn't win the Stanley Cup. 1999, the Dallas Stars changed that. The Dallas Stars in 82 games finished with a record of 51, 19, and 12. 114 points. They win the Stanley Cup. Then it goes on another 2-year drought. And then the Colorado Avalanche in 2001. They win the President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup with a record of 52, 16, and 10. 118 points. That, of course, the famous, Ray Bourque holding the cup over his head in his last game. Awesome moment. Absolutely incredible. Then it happens again the very next year, 2002. The Detroit Red Wings. They finished with a record of 51, 17, 10, and 4. Now, this is when you had the 4 columns. You had the win, loss, overtime loss, and I believe the shootout loss. It was that crazy 4 columns before they condensed them all into the one. 116 points. So, not bad. Pretty darn good record. And then it doesn't happen again. And then it takes a little while again before a team wins the President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup. Oddly enough, same team, the Detroit Red Wings. 2008, they finished with a record of 54-21-7, 115 points. Not bad. 82-game season. And then you don't see another President's Trophy / Stanley Cup winner until the shortened season, the lockout shortened season of 2013, when the Chicago Blackhawks do it. In 48 games, they finish with a record of 36-7-5, 77 points. They win the President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup. And that is the last time that has happened. It has not happened since. And let's go through these other teams from 2014 all the way up to this year. 2014, the Boston Bruins finished with a record of 54-19-9, 117 points. They win the President's Trophy. They get bounced. They get knocked out in the divisional final. The second round, the division final, 4-3 to the Montreal Canadiens. Then, in 2015, the New York Rangers, they win the President's Trophy with a record of 53-22-7, 113 points. They get knocked out in the Eastern Conference Final by the Tampa Bay Lightning, 4-3. 2016, the Washington Capitals, they win the President's Trophy with a record of 56-18-8, 120 points. They lose in the division final to the Pittsburgh Penguins, 4-2. And then 2017, the Capitals again win the President's Trophy, a record of 55-19-8, almost an identical record to the season before, 118 points. They lose again in the divisional final to the Pittsburgh Penguins. 4-3 this time, not 4-2, 4-3. They lose in 7 to the Penguins. Then 2018, the Nashville Predators, they win the President's Trophy for the first time, a record of 53-18-11. Now this is after they're coming off their Stanley Cup final appearance where they came up a little short against the Penguins, and they had an amazing season the next year. They finished with a record of 53-18-11, 117 points. Just crazy. What a crazy season. This is when they were going back and forth with the Winnipeg Jets in the Central Division to see who would win the President's Trophy. Nashville ended up winning the President's Trophy, and oddly enough, they get knocked out in the divisional final by the Winnipeg Jets, 4-3. Then, 2019, the Tampa Bay Lightning, they win the President's Trophy. They tie the all-time wins mark by the 96 Detroit Red Wings. They win 62 games. They go 62-16-4, 128 points. They lose in the divisional semifinal to the Columbus Blue Jackets, and it's a sweep. Columbus swept them 4-0. It was unbelievable. That first game, Tampa just came out just flying. They were up 3-0 on Columbus. Early in that game, it looked like this. So this is going to be just a blowout. And then for whatever reason, they just stopped playing. They stopped playing. Columbus came back. And Tampa never were able to flip that switch again. They ended up getting swept 4-0 in that first round. So a 62-win season goes right out the window. Then 2020, we have, of course, the world going collectively stupid. The NHL, they go on the pause because the world went collectively stupid. the collective IQ of the world dropped over 100 IQ points, and they finally come back after the pause. They go right into the playoffs. The Boston Bruins had the best record. They ended up with the best record. They finished 44, 14, and 12. They had 100 points. They lost in the divisional final, in the bubble, to the Tampa Bay Lightning 4-1. Then, 2021, we have another. It's a shortened season. It's a 56-game shortened season. It's when you had the 1 year with the realigned divisions. You had the Canadian division because you couldn't cross the border into Canada again. 2021, everybody was still just totally in a But so you had the Canadian division and everything else. But the Colorado Avalanche, they finished with the best record that year. 39, 13, and 4, 82 points. They lose in the divisional semifinal, or in the divisional final, to the Vegas Golden Knights 4-2. So that's 2021. 2022, the Florida Panthers, they win the President's Trophy for the first time. Now this is a team they all of a sudden they were a team they weren't that great, and then all of a sudden they kind of explode onto the scene. And Florida in 2022, they win the President's Trophy. They finished with a record of 58, 18, and 6, 122 points. Who the hell saw that coming from the Panthers? I certainly didn't. They end up losing in the divisional final. They get swept by their in-state rival, the Tampa Bay Lightning, 4-0. Who the hell would have thought that would have been the last time Tampa's lost a series? Who saw that coming? Not this guy. But then, 2023, the Boston Bruins, they set a wins record. They set the record for the most wins in a regular season. They finished with a record of 65, 12, and 5. 135 points. Holy cow. They just, like, who the hell thought who saw that coming? Not me. They get into the first round. They draw the Florida Panthers. This was, I believe, the year that they ended up, that the NHL, I think, did the second chance bracket, because I believe that was the year everybody's bracket went to hell. I know mine sure as hell did, because I didn't pick Florida to win this series, but Florida won. Florida beats the Boston Bruins in 7 games, 4-3. After being down 3-1, they fight back. Boston, oddly enough, in that 7th game, had a lead with a minute to go. They couldn't close it out. It went to overtime. And the Florida Panthers, I still remember, I'm waiting for pool teams to finish with their match at the Cardinal in Minneapolis. They're playing their matches. I'm watching this, and Florida scored that goal to send them to the second round, and I literally was just like, I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe it. The Panthers knock off the 65-win Boston Bruins 4-3. And Florida then, they rode that wave all the way to the Stanley Cup final, where they came up a little short. But yeah, what a run the Panthers have been on since then. 2024. Now, oddly enough, I say that was the 2022, the division final against Tampa, was the last time they lost a series. That was not the last time they lost a series. They lost in the Stanley Cup final to the Vegas Golden Knights in 2023. But then, 2024, the New York Rangers win the President's Trophy with a record of 55, 23, and 4. Darn good record. 114 points. Great season for the Rangers. They get all the way to the conference final. Who do they run into? The Florida Panthers. Florida takes them out in 6 games. Florida, of course, ends up winning the Stanley Cup in 2024. And then there's this year, 2025. The Winnipeg Jets, they win the President's Trophy for the first time with a record of 56, 22, and 4, 116 points. They start the season winning, I believe, 15 of their first 16 games. They looked incredible. It took 7 games for them to knock out St. Louis, as to which then I thought, okay, whoever they end up playing in the second round is probably going to take them out, and that's exactly what happened. Because in the divisional final, the Dallas Stars beat them in 6 games. So, when do we see a President's Trophy winner win the Stanley Cup? When is that going to happen? When's the next time it's going to happen? I don't know. Is the President's Trophy cursed? I mean, is it a curse to win the President's Trophy? I can understand why a lot of people would say yes, because it has not happened since 2013. I mean, look at all these records. 54 wins, 53, 56, 55, 53, 62. Now this one, of course, that was on the pause, but still 44 wins in 70 games for the Boston Bruins. Colorado, 39 wins in 56 games. Pretty darn good. Then, 2022, 58 wins, 65 wins, 55 wins, 56 wins, no Stanley Cups. All of these, it's crazy. It is crazy to look at how many wins are here and there's no championships. I mean, everybody talks about, let's redo the format. Let's go back to the 1-8 format, yada, yada, yada. Do we need to make, because again, everybody goes and says, all these, you get these lame matchups, the later rounds. Well, does anybody notice that the 4 division winners this year, they're all out? They all got bounced out in the second round. You have the 4 teams that you have remaining. You have a second place Dallas Stars team, second place in the Central. The Edmonton Oilers, third place in the Pacific. The Florida Panthers, third place in the Atlantic. Carolina, second place in the Metro. So you have second and third place teams in their divisions playing each other. As much as everybody wants to talk about, how, you get, if you had the 1-8 format, you wouldn't get Dallas, Colorado in the first round. Well, and again, I've said it before. You're not going to see a playoff format change until there is expansion. That's the only way I see the NHL expanding their playoff format is if the NHL expands to 34 teams or 36. It's the only way you're going to see expansion. See the playoff expansion. Then you might go back. Then you might see the 1-8 return. Because I think then that would be if you have a play-in, that's the only way that's going to work. But until that happens, we've got the playoff format that we have, and they've had it for a long time. They have basically had it since 2014, so it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere, no matter how many people yell and scream about wanting the 1-8 format. You're not going to get it, at least not until expansion happens again. But still, it's incredible that not since 2013, all of these teams with these win totals No Stanley Cups. No Stanley Cups to be had from any of these teams. The last team to do it, the 2013 Chicago Blackhawks. When does a team do it again? When does it happen? I don't know. I don't know when it happens, but what do you think? Well, does it maybe happen next year? I don't know. When do you think it happens? When does a team finally win the President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup in the same season? Let me know in the comments. Hit that like button. Only takes a second. Helps out the channel immensely. Hit that subscribe button also. We greatly appreciate it. I would love you forever for doing that. That would be absolutely incredible. That way I know I can see you back here again. Also, share this video with everyone that you know, friends, family. And, if you have people out there that love hockey and they love watching hockey stuff on YouTube, let them know about the channel. I'd love to see them here. I'd love to have every hockey fan in the world. I'd love to have you all join me here at Larry's House of Hockey. And hit that little notification bell, too. That will notify you anytime future videos are uploaded. And, I just thought it would be kind of interesting to go back and see and kind of compare some of these records. And just kind of wonder how teams can be this successful during regular seasons and then come playoffs, it's just not there. But again, let me know in the comments what you guys think. Like, comment, subscribe, share, and I will see you guys again real soon.